Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the practices that come out of the Bardo Thodol, which is the most often in the West it's known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is a quite spurious title. It's titled Bardo Thodol. It actually translates to liberation through hearing or on hearing in the intermediate states, which sounds nothing at all like Tibetan Book of the Dead. But when it was first, it's also interestingly, the Bardo Thodol, it's the most popular Buddhist book in history. So that is interesting. And it was first translated into English in 1927. And since then, there's been multiple translations and it's remained in the kind of like high seller or bestseller kind of lists since then, since 1927. So that's kind of curious and interesting that an ancient Tibetan Buddhist text would be so enduringly popular in the West. So one of the interesting things about the Bardo Thodol is that it talks about illusory form yoga, and when I move like that, my chair blinks in and out of existence, and so do I, which I think is kind of funny. Anyway, so the Bardo Thodol was taught by Padmasambhava. We all know who Padmasambhava is. He was the yogi, meditation master who consolidated Buddhism in Tibet. Buddhism had arrived in Tibet before Padmasambhava, but it hadn't really taken hold. Padmasambhava was the one to really get it to take hold. So he taught what's now known as the Bardo Thodol in Tibet, but it was considered at that time that it wasn't, the time wasn't right. So Yishi Sogyal, who always transcribed all of Padmasambhava's teachings, she compiled these teachings into a document and hid that document. She was hiding things all over Tibet. So she hid that document, and then it was found by a visionary saint mystic by the name of Karmalingpa, maybe 2 or 3 centuries later. So it is an interesting book, text, set of practices, because it combines funeral rites and prayers for the dead and a description of death, rebirth and life, as well as sort of instructions for recognizing true nature mind, all in one. So it's kind of an extraordinary text, actually. It's quite an extraordinary text. In the West, it's really known mainly for the funerary rites, for the practice that you do for the dead and the practices that you do to prepare to die. However, that's only a part of it. The reason it's valued highly by Buddhists is because the funerary practices, or the practices on dying, give the practitioner the opportunity to be liberated in the Bardo, so in between this life and the next one. If we fail to achieve liberation while we're alive. And because of the nature of that transitional period between this life and the next, liberation is easier in that space. So it gives everyone the ability to liberate now, this life, in this lifespan, which includes the little bit of time from when this body ceases to function and what they call a ground of consciousness, which is not a person, but it's kind of like the imprint or the habits of that previous entity before they trigger the forming of another being. So there's this intervening period which is really fruitful for achieving realization, because all of the things that stop us from achieving realization now in this body fall away. And most of those things have to do with this body. This body is an anchor into delusion. Our senses are organized in a way that our perception reinforces delusion. So when that all falls away, our sense perception, the body, all of the ties of the body and the ties of the brain, so not the subtle mind, but the brain and dualistic thinking, that all falls away. And what's left is our true nature, pure awareness. And in recognizing our true nature at that point, we're totally free. There's no rebirth. There's no higher or lower realms. None of that matters in that point. So that's why it's considered very important, because it's the only text that means that this is our last life as a deluded being. So the text means everyone gets out. That funny old saying, no one gets out alive. This text means no one remains trapped. This life is the end of suffering for everyone who understands these practices and does them. So that's why it's important, why Tibetans revere it, and why we're talking about it today. So as I pointed out, it's a text that was transcription of teachings by Pabasam Baba, then compiled by Chisogil, then discovered later by Kamalingpa, a great saint. And he organized the material a little bit as well and added some commentaries, a little bit of extra text around. So it is therefore uniquely Nyingmapa, which is the oldest school of Tibetan Buddhism. The practices you find in the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, are in all the other schools, but they come into those schools by an alternative route. A lot of the practices that we find in the Bardo Thodol are also in the lists that we find in the Karma Kagyu and the Sakya and the Gelugpa schools, actually, which are that are known usually as the 6 yogas of Naropa. Naropa was a 10th, 11th century yogi from India who taught these practices, but didn't teach them in the context of funerary practices, funerary rites. So it was these practices sort of taken out. And then also Niguma, a yogini, an extraordinary female master who was Naropa's sister. She also taught her version of 6 yogas, and both of those were transmitted to Tibet. Interestingly enough, the 6 yogas of Naropa are very, very strong in the Kagyu school, and the 6 yogas of Niguma are very, very strong in a subset of the Kagyu school known as the Shangpa. Niguma is one of the co-founders of the Shangpa, and interestingly, it's the 6 yogas of Niguma that are transmitted into the Gelugpa school, the schools of the Dalai Lama. So even though they're a very monk-orientated school, it's the yogas of a non-nun woman that are the source of their teachings on these things. So it's kind of interesting. So the practices in the Bardo Thodol are basically, I mean, I say this all the time, but it causes a bit of a stir. For me, all practices are Bardo practices. I don't know why that causes a stir, because I think it's quite true. Everything is a Bardo practice. Shamatha, meditation, Chod, Guru Yoga, everything is a Bardo practice, because the Bardo practices are about recognizing our true nature, and that's what all the other practices are about as well. So they're all Bardo practices in reality, but in the Bardo Thodol we have this set, and I'm not going to talk about all of them because a couple of them are not things that we can easily apply, and they're not, and they're things that have definite preliminaries. But I'll talk about the ones that don't have kind of preliminaries and that are easy to apply. So they are, not in any particular order. Phowa. Phowa is the transference of consciousness at the time of death. All of those words problematic. Transference to where? consciousness, what's that? At the time of death, what, you know, how are we defining death? All of those things are a little bit problematic, but that's essentially what Phowa is. And it is practiced to prepare for death, so that at the time of dying, one can find liberation in that moment of opportunity that arises as we die. Phowa transfers the seed consciousness, or the ground consciousness, whatever you want to call it, to a pure land. Pure lands are not places, they're states. So it's like and they're ever present anyway. It's not like you've got to go there somewhere else, they're ever present. So it's like moving into that state, that pure state in which there's no obstacles to Dharma practice. So even though you may not be realized or enlightened now, transferring into that state, there you can practice and you can become realized and then exit in whatever way you choose, as whatever you choose. Okay, and then the other one is dream yoga. I think most of you probably heard about dream yoga. Dream yoga is lucid dreaming, essentially. A set of practices around learning to recognize the illusory nature of dreaming and becoming aware while we dream. There's two versions of this. One has a fairly intense set of preliminaries and requires empowerment and is very difficult. The version we'll be talking about today is very simple, doesn't have preliminaries and doesn't require empowerment, and is, you know, anyone can do. It doesn't mean it's less potent, however. My experience is it's more potent. Neither are quick. So it's not like suddenly you'll be lucid dreaming and you'll be able to do all these things that we do in lucid dreams. But that ability emerges through doing this much more gentle kind of version of this. And it comes in a more risk-free and side effect-free way. And then we have what we call illusory form yoga, which we can also call rainbow, or what I call rainbow yoga, because rainbow is like the ultimate illusion. It's very pretty, very visible, but there's actually nothing there. So, and that's illusory form yoga is what we do during the day. And illusory form yoga, which is about essentially recognizing the illusory nature of all things, is twinned with dream yoga. So you never do them separately. You never do just dream yoga, and you never do just illusory form yoga, although you could actually. You could just do illusory form yoga and that would be beneficial, but they usually are twinned. Dream yoga and illusory form are always kind of twinned. One's called the nighttime practice, dream yoga, and one's the daytime practice, illusory form or rainbow yoga. And then I'm going to talk about what I'm calling Essence Chod. So most of you probably have heard of Chod. Chod means to cut, to sever. And what they're talking about is severing ignorance. Chod is an offering practice, and it's a letting go of our attachments and aversions. Because our principal attachment is to ourselves, in the tantric system, there's a lot of visualizations of giving up the body, making the body an offering. And because our primary aversions are scary things, like things that, like, well, our aversions change over time and they're culturally specific. But in the olden days, there was a very strong aversion to death and disease, to putrefaction, germs, although they wouldn't have called them germs, just pestilence, you know. So often Chod was done in places where those things were evident, where there were corpses. So usually Chod was done in charnel ground. You know, these are not like our cemeteries where it's very garden-like, it's very pretty and sitting there is peaceful and lovely, and there are these tombstones that are all very nice. These situations were quite horrible, where bodies were sort of, you know, partially burnt, partially buried, while animals had dug them up and consumed part of them. You know, it smelt really bad. It was gross. They were not pleasant places, charnel grounds. So that's why people practice Chod there, to overcome those aversions, those core aversions about death and putrefaction and stuff. But Essence Chod actually doesn't need to be done in that way. And usually Chod's done with like a thigh bone trumpet, you know, you're blowing the thigh bone trumpet, you're banging a drum, you know, it's quite shamanistic. But actually those things are not essential at all, because Chod is rooted in the Prajnaparamita Sutra. And of course, in the Prajnaparamita Sutra at the time of the Buddha, they weren't doing any of this. They weren't using thigh-bone trumpets, and they weren't banging drums and stuff like that. They did it almost completely as a meditative, contemplative exercise. So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about, how to do Chod in that way. So without the drums and the horns and stuff, and just focus on what Chod's really about, which is to let go of oneself, to make an offering of oneself on behalf of other sentient beings, and to dissolve into the luminous, empty nature of things, which is what the Prajnaparamita Sutra is all about. It's about the luminous, empty nature of things. Okay, so, but I want to do this in a kind of like a way that makes sense for doing it as folding all of this in to a day, so that we can make this our lives, so that we can do this every day for the rest of our lives in a way that's very simple. Does that make sense? So I might see if anyone has any questions at this point before we move on, because there's stuff there that some of you may not know about, and I'm happy to give a bit more information about that. But I think it will actually become clearer as we go through what I'm calling it like the day in the life of the Bardo practitioner. So a lot of this will become clear as we move through, but if you have any kind of questions at this point about what I've said already, you can pop your hands up and we'll answer those questions. No hands are going up. Okay, all right. So I'm dividing this into what to do when we wake up. So when we first wake up in the morning, what to do in our daily practice session. So hopefully we all have a daily practice session, which is morning, afternoon, night, doesn't matter when it is, but it needs to be at a time when you have energy. So there's absolutely no point leaving your daily practice time to like 9 o'clock at night after you've had a whole day of taking the kids to school, going to work, coming home, making dinner, bathing in, pacifying the kids, putting the kids to bed, having a wine, then watching some really bad detective television, and then, you know, squeezed in just before your shower and bed, you know, you do a bit of practice. This is not the way to do it. You need to select the time that you are most energetic. That's the time that you should choose. And we all know when that time is. It takes a week of observation. You know, just observe yourself over a week. You know, most of us have a 3 p.m. dip in sugar glucose levels. We start to sort of nod off at that point. Then we eat sugar, and that makes that a pitch, and then it dips even more. So by 3:30, after having a snack, like we're even more tired. Anyway, so around 3 o'clock, most of us are starting to really flag. Not always. Some people are different. Some people are really not morning people. Like it takes them a few hours to actually, even though their eyes are open and they're walking around, it takes a few hours for them to actually be fully functioning humans. And you know, obviously some people are really night owls. Most of their energy happens like immediately after eating dinner or something like that. So it doesn't matter when, just choose when you're most alive. And that is the time that you do your practice. Obviously it's great if we have, you know, more than one session a day, but if you have like a job and kids and other caring responsibilities, that's often a big ask. So we sort of try to have at least one session. So we're going to talk about what to do in that session, and there's a couple of options. And then what do we do as we go about our lives? So what do we do when we're in the car? What do we do when we're on the bus? What do we do when we're at work? What do we do when we're doing grocery shopping? What do we do when we're answering the phone? What do we do when we're arguing with our mother? Which happens all the time. What are we doing when we're feeding our pets? What are we doing? What are we doing when we're gardening? What do we do? So while all that stuff that goes on in our ordinary life is happening, how do we make that our practice? In a simple, easy way. So it's not like, you know, it's not like this kind of like be ever mindful of everything. Of course, mindfulness is great, but a lot of times people approach it with this very strange, intense strangulation kind of attitude. I've got to be mindful of everything I'm doing. And it's very unhelpful. It doesn't help at all. It just makes you more uptight. This is a way of being mindful and also recognizing the true nature of things. Well, just going about your life. It's very simple. Then what to do when you go to bed. So there's some little things that don't take a lot of time that we would do as we're going to bed that help to, make your entire experience about practice without actually changing anything. You don't need to stop doing any of the things that we're doing. We don't need to go and live in a cave in the Himalayas or anything at all. These little things will make your life practice without changing the details of your life. That's the sort of like the great beauty of the Vajrayana approach. Okay, and then what to do when we dream. Now this one, right now, most of us are not able to do anything when we dream except dream. But in time, as we do these things, if we have this life that, we have a practice session at some point in the day, when we wake up, we do a few little things. As we're going about our day, we do a few little things. As we're going to bed, as we're preparing for bed, as we're hopping in bed, we do a few little things. Eventually, when we dream, we'll go, oh, I am dreaming. And then we can practice there as well. And it all becomes movement towards realization and liberation without having to change the actual itinerary of our lives. You don't need to run away, you don't need to go and retreat, you don't need to do any of these things. Those things are really good. Going into retreat, going to isolated places, these are very good, but they're not essential. I think it's good to try and do that, periodically, but it's not essential. Particularly until you have a really sound, stable, regular practice routine, a retreat is probably not going to be of great benefit. Might really kickstart things. But usually if we don't have a solid practice routine already before we go into retreat, then retreat just becomes more of the same, Okay. So what to do when we wake up? There's a few little things that we can do that take the striving and effort out of it. One of those things is to have little post-it notes, although we have like A4 sized ones all over our house. So, and on those you can put aphorisms that are meaningful, that help you with your practice. And so in this context, we have maybe 2 on the wall or near our bed, so that as we wake, we see them. Just some people popped off. So one of those would be all beings in their nature are the same as the Buddha, as am I. Those of you who've come along to the Buddha Nature Group, it's something that I've suggested we do. So that all beings in their nature are the Buddha, as am I, helps to build our confidence in our ultimate nature, also helps us to equalize ourselves with all other beings. But it's not a striving kind of a thing, it's just a reminder. It's just there by the bed, on the fridge, in a notebook, on a desk, wherever it is. And I think it's good to have it in more than one place. We see it and we remember. It's quite simple, effortless, and over time, we really start to feel the confidence in our nature. That confidence is essential. And we start to recognize that nature in others, in all other sentient beings, and we start to really feel equal, not superior, not inferior, utterly equal. I think I said in another talk that really feeling equal is profound. When you really start to feel equal, the world's completely different. So while we still have, self-grasping that makes us feel either inferior or superior, both of those are self-grasping. Both of those are toxic. We do not experience the world as it is. once we start to equalize, we see ourselves as utterly equal to all human beings, to all kitty cats, puppy dogs, birdies, you know, a profound thing happens. The equalizing of ourselves with all other sentient beings, and at the same time, recognizing that they're all Buddha, including ourselves. In our nature, we're all Buddha. This is really quite a profound thing. And it's essential foundation to recognize this and start to feel it in the heart. No practice, none of your practice will really do anything until that has started to change you, the way you see the world. So that's number one. Just a little post-it note or something that says, all beings in their nature are the same as the Buddha, as am I. Very simple. You see that when you wake up. Then I would have another one which says, actually, I'll read out the one that I have, which, because I printed it out from here, I can actually just open and read. So the one that I've got one that I sort of say during the day, which we'll go over in a minute. But I've also got one that I have printed out, which I will just read, if that's easy. Where is it? Okay, so the one that I've got printed out is, this is a dream-like illusion, a temporary mirage, a fleeting fabrication. Let it go and rest. So when you wake up, you see that. This is a dream-like illusion, a temporary mirage, a fleeting fabrication. Let it go and rest. So that statement that we see as we wake, it's telling us what is true, that our senses, our sense perception, and our dualistic mind fabricate our experience. Everything that we experience is a fabrication. Everything we think and feel is a fabrication. All of that is real, but not true. So it's not like I'm saying completely discount, disregard your feelings. Don't worry about the tree, just keep walking on and you'll be able to walk through it. I'm not saying that. These things are real, but they're not true. They're distortions, delusions. So I think a good example of how the brain and the dualistic mind does this, fabricates things, is color. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware of how color works. There's some pretty colors behind me. So in reality, this sky's not blue. In reality, that grass is not green. In reality, you know, water is transparent, but when we look at it in a lake or the sea, it's blue or green, you know. Likewise, there's no rainbow there, you know. The color, physical matter has no color. There's no color in the universe. It's produced by the brain and the dualistic mind. The eye and the brain, this eye sense and the brain interpret wavelengths of light into colors. But interestingly, light has no color either. It has no color either. So color is a complete fabrication, and yet look how dominant it is in our world, in our life. Like, look out the window. It's a delusion. It's an illusion, fabrication. Likewise, our sense of self. There are processes going on that create a sense of being a separate being, right? It's a delusion. It's a fabrication. Arising from that sense of being a separate self. Thoughts, feelings, etc. They are fabrication on fabrication. So, you know, it's all a fabrication. So we remind ourselves of this. This is a dream-like illusion, you know? And what does that do by reminding ourselves when we wake? This is a dream-like illusion, mere mirage, fleeting fabrication, you know? it does some very profound things. Number one, points us in the direction of what things really are. Things really are luminous space. They're not solid, lasting things. It's the traditional phrase is luminous emptiness, but I'm not a fan of that word emptiness. We could say luminous openness, luminous spaciousness, luminous possibility, potentiality. There's lots of ways you could say this without using that word emptiness. So it's this little reminder just by your bed when you wake, if you like if you sleep on a certain side, make sure that's the side the sign is. Don't put it on the other side so you have to roll over to sit. Make it as effortless as you can. And then those two little reminders, all beings in the nature are the same as the Buddha, as am I. And then this is a dreamlike illusion, a mere mirage, a fleeting fabrication. Let go and rest, What happens is you develop confidence in your Buddha nature. You develop confidence in the pure nature of all other beings. They're Buddhas, right? Then things start to equalize. Without you having to really do anything. You just slowly, this happens. And then you start to see the illusory nature of things. Like, it's good to contemplate the fact that color is an illusion. Light has no color, and yet the eye and the brain create color out of wavelengths of light. Objects have no color in themselves. It's light. It's how our brain and eye are interpreting that. It's luminosity, literally. This is, so look and go, this seems very real to me, and yet it is not. But think about other things that the brain and the dualistic mind fabricate to create some sense of this reality. Contemplate these things. Physics, chemistry, these are our friends in this space. They prove what the Buddha said 2,600 years ago. The brain fabricates this. This is not how things really are, and yet we cling to them. This is how it is. This is real. That's solid over there, but it isn't. It really isn't. So remind ourselves of these things. So, and one of the profound things that will happen if we do this is that when we start to really feel rather than think or believe, really feel the luminous, illusory nature of things, including our own self and our thoughts and emotions, guess what happens? This kind of exciting thing. Attachment and aversion are cut. What's the point of desiring, craving, wanting mirages? There's none. There's no point. So our grasping, clinging, chasing after stuff, it just starts to just fall away. We start, and also our fears. Why be afraid of a mirage? Why be afraid of a fabrication? Even if it's our own thinking, our own feelings and emotions, our own memories. Why be afraid or upset by any of that fabrication? We start to let it go. And then what happens? We're released into a state of relief. Have you ever been really super anxious? Like, we all have anxious triggers. Public speaking is a common one. Being in public places is another one for many people. Being, on public transport, unable to get off, no escape route. All these, whatever is your anxiety trigger, we all have them. Being overly hot, being overly cold, whatever triggers our anxiety. Being treated meanly, having to wait long time in a queue, a big stack of drugs, whatever the anxiety trigger is, if you go, this is a dreamlike illusion, a mere mirage, a fleeting fabrication. Let go, rest. There's no point getting stressed or anxious about any of that because it's a mirage. Not only is that a mirage, what's out there that you think is troubling you, the trouble you feel is also a mirage. Both of those things are mirages. the thing and the reaction. They're both fabrications, mirages. The reaction is a mirage on a mirage. It's even less interesting, even less worth our time. You know, we get so uptight and afraid and yearning. We yearn for so many things. We want so much. Even if it's just, I want to be a little warmer, you know, I want to be a little cooler. I want to be less hungry. I want to be less thirsty. You know, I'm not saying don't drink water. Drink water, please. But, you know, it's all a mirage. It's all a mirage. Obviously, there is reality, but it is not at all what we think. It's not at all what we think. So you need to do the things that sustain you. That's it. You know, no other yearning is needed. No other fear is needed. Avoid the obvious pitfalls. You know, don't walk over a cliff. Don't jump off a bridge. You know, be commonsensical. But all the other stuff, it's just irrelevant and not worth our time. You have a simple existence, you know. That's beautiful. You don't need any more. You don't need to be afraid that's not enough. You don't need to be afraid of losing that. It's all a fabrication. So we start to really relax. We start to not be anxious. We start to not, you know, fear losing things. When we lose things, we're okay about it. The intensity of our reactions just takes a nosedive. We're much more even. And that doesn't mean cold, detached, because if you've ever been really super, what I was starting with before, if you've ever been really super anxious, you know, when the source of that anxiety has been removed and the anxiety eases off, there's this relief. You know, we all know that when we've had to do some sort of public speaking. I'm a university lecturer and a person who talks about Dharma. So talking in the public does not bother me, but it does a lot of people. And they, you know, they do the thing and their heart's palpitating, their palms are sweating and they're really freaking out. Then it's over and they go, oh, thank God, you know, but their lives were not in danger. There was no need for the palpitations. There was no need for the sweaty palms. There was no need for the dry mouth. There was no need for the wheezy stomach. There was no need for any of that. Fabrication. You know, likewise, people have phobias. My beloved partner, Jamin, used to have a profound phobia of snakes. Really profound. He couldn't even look at a snake on TV without, you know, totally freaking out. But through his practice, no problem with snakes anymore. That phobia is dead and buried. He doesn't have any reason to be afraid of snakes. It's a fabrication, you know? So as we start to see the illusory nature of stuff and then start to feel it, you know, all of the thoughts and reactions and emotions triggered by that illusion, they weaken, you know, and then there's this relief. It's a burden lifted. It's a good thing. And then joy creeps in. We start to feel quite joyful because this starts to make us laugh. It's quite funny, you know. I mean, sometimes it's darkly funny. You know, we Buddhists have a bit of a dark sense of humor, you know, because it is terrible. There is a lot of suffering, you know, but at the same time, it's ridiculous how we react to it, you know. So joy rises once we start to let go and we go, I'm not going to react to this mirage, you know. Reacting to a mirage is ridiculous. It's pointless. It's deranged. Do we want to be deranged? Nope, we don't. So, you know, we start to, but we don't have to like fight our reactions all the time. That's not what I'm proposing. Just do these gentle reminders, you know. This is a dreamlike illusion. This is a mere mirage. this is a fleeting fabrication. You know, I've chosen those words for my little reminder carefully. You know, they hold in them kind of the core things that we need to be able to let go. The illusory nature of it, the fleeting nature of it, the non-solidity of it. All right, so I've chosen the words for my little aphorism carefully. You can use your own aphorism. It doesn't matter. You can say, this is a movie. This is just a movie, you know. I'm not sure if that one is helpful, but I have heard lamas say, just tell yourself this is a movie, which I think might help some. For me, the idea of mirage and illusion is more helpful. Anyway, so when we wake up, we have our two little signs. That's it. Done and dusted. Print them out for the next 10 years until they fade. Done. It's done. When you wake up, suddenly you're practicing as soon as your eyes open. Oh, all beings of the Buddha. Yep, gotcha. Oh, this is a delusion. It's an illusion. Okay, I'll try to remember that throughout the day. You know, and then for the rest of your life, all you need is those reminders as you wake. It's quite simple. If there's some other things we can do at this point when we wake, if we have a teacher, and one of those is to just, in a kind of warm, open-hearted way, acknowledge, you know, the gift that they've given you, you know, by teaching you the Dharma, helping you to be free. If you don't have a teacher, totally cool too. You know, you can not, you don't, you know, actually, until you've got a stable practice and things start to change, you don't really need a teacher. Once things start to change and you need advice, then yes, you need a teacher. Okay, so then what do we do in our daily practice session? So, you know, I've said we need at least 20 minutes, you know. We can build up, you know, we can build up our meditation muscles by starting with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20. That's totally fine to spend a few weeks building up. But honestly, I would not be being your friend if I suggested to you that less than 20 minutes was going to make any dent on the delusory, habitual way we are. You know, you need at least 20 minutes, you know, when you're at your most energetic. So there's energy there, you know. So you have two choices. Both of these choices come from the Bardo Thodol. So the two things I've talked about before, you know, recognize the illusory nature of things when you wake. That's from the Bardo Thodol. That's called Illusory Form Yoga. Simple, isn't it? When we hear the words Illusory Form Yoga, that sounds very intense. It's not. I mean, there are tantric versions of this that are really quite complicated with visualizations and chanting and all this kind of stuff. Not essential. Good if you're into that, but not essential. Okay, so then in our daily practice session, you have two choices. If you have a teacher, right? So what does our daily session look like? It is mostly meditation, shamatha, and as we progress, we start to team the shamatha with vipassana, which is a little bit more questioning, right? Rather than just silent sitting, and there's a little bit of questioning. We always do them together in our tradition. In other traditions, they separate these things out. But in our tradition, it's always everything together. Unity. So you have two choices. If you have a teacher, you do guru yoga, right? Which is in the Bardo Thodol. So the idea is that guru yoga is something that you do with a person. No. Guru yoga is a meditative exercise. It's a visualization, a relaxation, and then it always flows into shamatha, sitting meditation. This idea that guru yoga is about doing what a teacher says, following them around, obeying their every word, that's just nonsense. It's not what it is. Having said that, when you meet a truly realized being, and you know, most of us wouldn't know a truly realized being from a turnip. We don't know. Come on, we've got no idea. So, but when you do meet one, right, and you think, oh, this person is enlightened, you feel it in your heart, right? and there's a feeling, I don't want to kind of give you suggestions, you know, that you're then gonna, you may have had them or not, and then judge where you are, whether you've had them or not, you know, because everyone's different. But often when you meet your teacher, there's a feeling of, my own nature is sitting in front of me. My own nature is talking to me. You know, there's a sense of your pure nature is manifest outside. That experience, that feeling is quite key to Guru Yoga, right? It's kind of the heart of it, the motor of it. But having said that, then, you know, if you had that experience and you trust this person, then you're quite likely to do what they say, you know, because they won't say anything to hurt you. But because we don't know the difference between a Buddha and a turnip, we have to be very careful, you know. Don't hitch your wagon to a turnip. You know, we're not Cinderella. Fairy godmother is not going to come and turn that turnip into something useful. The turnip's just a freaking turnip, you know. It's not going to do us any good. So we need to be very careful. If we are going to have a guru, if we want to open our heart so that, and this is why we do it, why we have a guru, because it enables the opening of the heart, it enables surrendering of the ego's grasping and clinging and self-centeredness. It enables the flowering of generosity, patience, discipline, diligence, you know, all kinds of very positive qualities. That's why we do it. So, but we need to make sure that if we're going to make that commitment, that it's to a proper teacher, not a turnip, you know. And then there are levels of teacher. So there's people who they know enough to do some teaching, and they might speak to us, we might really like them, they might appeal to us somehow, but, you know, they're not realized beings. So they can help us a bit, but they're not really appropriate objects for Guru Yoga. Now, because we don't know the difference between a Buddha and a turnip, you know, I think what's logical and wise is, unless you have had, if you haven't had that experience where you go, oh, here is my nature talking and walking in front of me, you know, if you haven't had that kind of experience, or you haven't been with the teacher for like 12 years is the standard, observe the teacher for 12 years, then decide. See, this is not a rushed thing. In the West, we rush into this, you know, but it's meant to be 12 years. But, you know, in the Himalayas, they don't actually usually choose their own teachers. They inherit them from their families, from their clan, from, you know, it's about where they're born, you know. But we Westerners, we choose our teachers, and we do it the way we do everything else, the way we choose shoes. Look at 4 or 5, pick the one we fancy. This is not good. We need to observe. You know, 12 years is not a bad idea. But you don't wait to practice until you've made that commitment. None of these things require a teacher, but all of these things will lead to enlightenment. Shamatha in itself is a profound method that will lead to enlightenment. The Buddha practiced none of this, right? He did shamatha and vipassana in union, and all this evolved. These techniques are designed to quicken that up, to make that quicker, because shamatha and practicing meditation can take a while. If you're not, you know, diligent, doing it every single day is so important. You know, if your heart's not open, if you don't have joy for it, it can take time. It can really take time. These things quicken it up, you know, relatively effortlessly, in fact, as well. So if you have a guru, do some Guru Yoga. And the version that I encourage is, if you don't have a physical guru, living guru now, you use a guru from the past who's trustworthy. Shakyamuni Buddha, Pamasambhava or Guru Rinpoche, Yeshe Sogyal. There are others, many others. Machik Labdron, great Kagyu Yogini. Dorje Peldrin, great Nyingma Yogini. Sarah Kandro, great Dujom Yogini, Dakini Yogini. there are so many, you know, who we know based on their teachings. This person's enlightened, you know. And what's the giveaway for an enlightened being? They're not uptight. They're open-minded. They're loving and accepting. They're not interested in material gain. They actually hide from material gain. There's a funny story about Jemin Khyentse Wangpo, a great Nyingma master from about 100 years ago. He heard that he was going to be given a great sort of title, a very great honor. And the monastery was preparing to give him this honor, and he snuck out in the middle of the night. He didn't want the honor because it would mean, you know, then he had to be this being, this big being, you know. And then another time, he was a beautiful calligrapher. He did beautiful calligraphy. The king of a kingdom in Kham is in eastern Tibet, but it's made up of about 14 kingdoms. The king of Derge, which is one of those eastern Tibetan kingdoms, he heard about, he wanted a prize calligrapher to come and work for him. And because Jemin Khyentse Wangpo heard about that and knew, you know, because he was an explicit calligrapher, he deliberately started to just write with a chicken scrawl, indecipherable, because he did not want to be anyone's prized calligrapher. He didn't want to be special in any way. So whenever anything like that started to move in his direction, because he was extraordinary, he would run, or he would hide it, you know. So many of the great beings ran away, you know, from the monastery, from the nunnery, from, you know, the fame and glory that was coming their way because of their incredible compassion, or their great practice, you know. They just ran away. So you can look at the lives of these beings from the past, and alive or dead, it doesn't matter, because it's not about them really, it's about your heart. Whatever causes you to feel respect or devotion. Devotion is a mixture of respect and awe and a sense of this is going to change me, you know. So whatever makes you feel initially just some sort of respect, I really like and admire this being, choose them, you know, it's enough. So you don't have to know them, and they don't have to be alive, but they do need to be human beings. They can't be, you know, made up. And choose human beings who've written stuff down, you know, so that you can go and read what they said. You know, these days, lamas have videos and books, and, you know, it's really very easy. But in the past, you know, they basically wrote things down. And you want that. You want to hear the stories of their life. You want to see the teachings that they wrote down. That's important. So, and essentially Guru Yoga is, you visualize them above in front of you. You open your heart to them. Take refuge. You make an offering. The only offering you need to make is of your own body, speech, and mind. Just offer that up. Then you can say a little mantra if you want. The standard Guru Yoga mantra is Om Mani Padme Guru Pema Duddul. You can use any mantra you want. It doesn't actually matter. It's just the ability of, it's just about igniting the kind of the voice in the act. And then, and there's a certain way of doing it that you can try or not try. When it said chant, right? This doesn't mean sing or say out loud in a monotonous way. It means to be subvocal, to almost hum it like a bee. Bee is the symbol of mantra. So it's like a humming. The vagus nerve in the back of the throat is ignited by this, which helps to calm. Blood pressure goes down, heart rate goes down, respiration slows. The triggering of the vagus nerve is really important. So you can do the mantra, and then you dissolve the guru you've chosen, Shakyamuni Buddha, Padmasambhava, Yeshe Tsogyal, Machi Gladron, Sarah Khandro, Ayu Khandro, anyone, it doesn't matter. Whoever you feel some respect and admiration for, which will then later become devotion, you then dissolve them directly into your heart. Now there's all kinds of tantric things about, you know, you dissolve light from their head to, you know, their eye chakra to your chakra, their throat chakra to your throat chakra, their heart chakra to your heart chakra. This is not essential. It's good, it's fine, but you just need to dissolve them as a body of light into your heart. And then you can dissolve yourself into space. So you're just sort of imagining yourself dissolve into space. And then from there, you just sit, not doing anything. And they call it resting in equipoise, which is a fancy way of saying, just sit. So those of us with devotion who are lucky enough to have found that when we do this, when we dissolve the Lama into our heart, and then they dissolve into us, and then we dissolve into space, and then we sit in equipoise. There's a subtle, sometimes not so subtle, joy. So it's, it's not hard or difficult. The surrender of just giving yourself up, dissolving yourself is giving yourself up. It's not difficult or hard or scary. It's pleasant. It's rejuvenating. It always makes me feel happy. So, we often think surrender is like enslavement. You're not giving up what is perfect about yourself, your perfect nature. You're giving up all of the ordinary, grasping, clinging stuff, and what's left? Luminous awareness, which has no negative. There's no negative, So, and when you dissolve yourself, your body and mind and speech into that luminous emptiness or luminous awareness, you're more likely to recognize your own nature. Like you do this as a kind of a game. It's kind of like it's a practice, practicing. But at some point, just by doing this, dissolving the Lama into your heart, taking refuge, making an offering, dissolving the Lama into your heart, dissolving yourself, resting in meditation, then compassion ignites and self-clinging starts to dissolve, and you really do start to surrender. There's nothing good you need to surrender. Everything we surrender is clinging. We're just surrendering that, right? I'm just saying this because there's a lot of fear around Guru Yoga, particularly this idea that you should follow some person, usually a dude, and do what they say. That's just nonsense. Guru Yoga is a meditative exercise. It's done on a cushion. And then, you may be lucky enough to meet a being who you recognize them as your own nature walking around in front of you. And then observe for a while. Make sure you're not mistaken. See what they're like. Take teachings from them. Watch, observe their students. What are their students like? This is a real big, I stupidly, when I was young, I stupidly ignored really badly behaving students of some teachers. Thought, that's just the students, the teachers, pure, that's just the students, But really, if the students are being mean, greedy, bossy, manipulative, superior, judgy, where's that coming from? I don't think it's worth hanging around in such communities because they're not really communities. They're just nests of vipers. Don't hang around. Observe the teacher, observe the students. What are they doing? What is their main practice? Often there'll be a lot of puja doing in some communities, but really the main practice is raising money to build something that's really, come on. I think temples are beautiful and I love them. I think stupas are fantastic. I love them. These things are good. But if that's all they're doing, constantly raising money for the next project, constantly hitting you up for donations, I would be concerned about that. That's not really what practice is about. These are good things if that's what is really happening. So that's where the money is really going. I sound very suspicious at this point, but you do have to be cautious. You know, you do have to be cautious. Okay, so if you have a teacher, or you're happy to use a teacher from the past, you know, who you admire and respect, you do Guru Yoga and then you do shamatha in your session, your 20 minutes. So the Guru Yoga there that I taught you is 5 minutes. It's not long. You repeat that 3 times. Visualize, dissolve with mantra, dissolve oneself, rest. It's 5 minutes, you know. If the mind wanders, go back, visualize the Guru, dissolve the Guru, dissolve the self, rest. Yeah, mind wanders, do it again. You know, and in 20 minutes you can probably do that 3 or 4 times. You know, if your mind wanders a lot. You know, this is not hard or difficult, or there's no bells, there's no drums. You know, there's nothing. There's just what's needed. You know, this going for refuge, offering oneself, dissolving the visualization of enlightened nature into you, dissolving yourself into empty space, luminous awareness. This is all that's needed. It's really not a big deal. Okay, if you, however, are not comfortable with Guru Yoga, do not have a teacher and do not want one, and there are people like that, that's fine. Then you can do Essence Chod before your shamatha, your sitting meditation. Or if you're doing shamatha with Practitioner, you do it before. Now, so Essence Chod, I'm just keeping track of time because we are running out of time, of course. Time's always like this. So what's the essence of Chod? Essence of Chod is cut the self. That's it. Cut our attachment to self, right? And interestingly, it's essentially the same thing that we're doing in Guru Yoga. So what we do is we simply, but we don't have a guru, right? So we're simply offering body, speech, and mind to the ultimate nature or ultimate awareness. So we're not necessarily visualizing, teaching, or anything. We're sitting there, we're thinking on behalf of sentient beings, I offer my body, my speech, and mind to luminous awareness, to the true nature, whatever wording you want to use. And then you visualize your body going, the speech or energy going, and then the mind going, right? So you offer it up to luminous awareness, to space. And then you just sit in meditation. It's really very simple. If you need some kind of like thing to offer to, you can visualize a seed syllable, like an R syllable, or a lotus, or the Buddha. You can offer it up to them if you want. But generally we're offering to the pure nature for the sake of all sentient beings. These 2 things are important. So we dissolve the body into luminous space. We dissolve speech and energy into luminous space. We dissolve the mind into luminous space. And then we just sit in meditation. Super easy, but super simple, should I say. But it's important that we are offering for something, someone actually. So we need to know, for the sake of all sentient beings, I'm offering this. And when I do my daily offerings, I offer my body, speech, and mind on behalf of all sentient beings. You kind of like it's important to use your own words. I mean, there's these beautiful poems by great lamas, you know, offering prayers, you know, these are fantastic. If you feel it, if you feel connected to them, use them, it's fine. If, however, you don't feel it with those pre-composed things, then compose your own, put it in your own words, you know. And so I do a mix of, you know, things composed by my guru and my own words. So usually, like, I offer my body, speech, and mind, and I always say, and I think this is important, with nothing held back, with no reservation. So that sense of, I totally give it up. I give up my body, I give up my speech, I give up my mind, I give up my very life. No reservation, no reluctance, and with nothing held back. You know, it's all offered for the sake of sentient beings. That's important. So you need to arouse compassion when you're doing Essence Chod, which is often, you know, when traditionally Chod is done in charnel grounds, you know, so you're facing fear, so you're abandoning your self-clinging to your own fears about germs, disease, death, right? You don't really need that here. Or you're abandoning your attachment to yourself, because that's the core of Chod, abandoning our attachment to self, body, speech, and mind. And the thing that will make that work, that will help you to give it up and let go, is compassion. And so, you know, I think of suffering beings, you know, and I have, you know, I think everyone knows I have a particular softness for animals. So I think about, think about these animals and what they're going through, and then I offer myself for their sake. So you sort of need to trigger this compassion, otherwise it's abstract. It's just some kind of like exercise, you know. So when you sit down, you think, okay, for the sake of sentient beings, I'm doing this. And then you think of some specific sentient beings who are suffering, who you wish were not suffering, who are unhappy, who you wish were happy. You know, you think specifically of them and then offer. You dissolve your body into luminous awareness, which really is just a visualization. You're just dissolving it into space. You make your body like light that just dissipates into space. Then you dissolve your speech and energy. So if you want, you can visualize the meridians of the body dissolving into space if you want. And then you dissolve your mind. So then what's left, right, this subtle mind, you dissolve that. And then you sit in shamatha. So you've aroused compassion, you've offered everything up, and then you sit in shamatha. Everything's just dissolved into luminous awareness. So you're sitting in that. And of course, lickety-split, thoughts come back. Self-clinging comes back. Sense of being a person, being a self, separate from others, comes back. This is fine. It's totally fine. Do it again. So then again, summon compassion for sentient beings. Offer. So you visualize the body being offered, which is just dissolving into light, into emptiness. Then the speech energy dissolving into light and emptiness. Then the mind dissolving into light and emptiness. And just have this feeling, or you can say something, you can write something out and repeat it, you know, for the sake of all sentient beings, of body, speech, mind, with nothing held back, you know, and then just rest in meditation. And you can do that a number of times in a 20-minute session, I reckon, depending on how active the mind is. So, you know, see how similar they are? Ultimately, when you strip things back of all their cultural paraphernalia, it's all very simple. It's all about letting go, resting, generating compassion, generating some feeling, you know, that's not about yourself, and then sitting in shamatha. It's kind of like the model. If you look at pujas or sadhanas, you know, these rituals that they do in Vajrayana, they will have this format, you know, and all of them have a moment where visualization is dissolved into oneself, and then oneself dissolves into space, and then you sit in meditation. However, usually that sitting in meditation is, you know, a heartbeat long, and then they move on. They have to do all the other prayers, you know. But that bit, having dissolved the visualization into oneself, having dissolved oneself, and then sitting, that's the whole thing. That's the most important part. All the other stuff is extraneous, doesn't need to be done. Just that's important. That's what will change you. So that's why we do that. You know, we just essentialize it and just do that. So that's it. Then, when we go about our daily lives, we've only got a short period of time left, we just remind ourselves of the illusory nature of things. So regularly we say to ourselves, this is all a dream-like illusion, mere mirage, fleeting fabrication. Just let go and relax. So if you're in the car and you get stuck in traffic, or on a bus and get stuck in traffic, just, say it to yourself. So it's particularly good to say when we're feeling emotionally reactive. So something's being triggered. So we just say, this is a dreamlike illusion, mere mirage, fleeting fabrication. Just let go and relax. And then you put your awareness on your breathing, just gently on your breathing, just for a minute or even 30 seconds, and quickly, or not so quickly, depending how irritated we are or how reactive we are, those things will ease or at least weaken a bit, and just, if you go through this often through your day, whenever you're feeling emotionally reactive, right, or whenever you feel particularly drawn or attracted to something, and if you feel particularly averse to something, you really dislike something, someone's voice is just grating and you want to scream, chalk on, nails on chalkboard. It's driving you nuts. You're really irritated. You really don't like it. Then this is a mere illusion, a dreamlike illusion. It's a mirage. It's a fleeting fabrication. Just let go, relax. And try and remember that not only is the thing that you're experiencing illusion, a mere display of, light, so's the reaction, the thoughts you're having about the person's voice, the feelings you're having about having to listen to them. So it's all fabrication. So we just let it go, let it go. Just throughout the day, you say that multiple times. Yes, Peter's asking if I can send the affirmations. Yes, I can. So, and then throughout the day, we do this as often as we need to. And over time, our reactions really will weaken and we'll start to see the illusory nature of things. And remember, we do these contemplations, thinking about things like color. How color is a complete fabrication of the mind. It's not real. Also, how do we come to experience something that we taste as sweet or bitter? These are all processes about the mouth and the brain in this sense, not the eye and the brain, like the color. How do we come to see shapes? How do we come to recognize faces? All these things, it's all about processes that construct something out of light, out of luminous space. It's all it is. So remind yourself of these things, water's not actually, the water I'm looking at is not really blue. It's translucent, it has no color. Light has no color either. But that neon light over there, it looks very red. So you just remind yourself, this is all constructed, fabricated. So are the thoughts you're having, so are the feelings you're having, so is the sense of self that you have. That's quite a complicated set of processes that create an illusion of a seamless self. But it's an illusion on top of an illusion on top of an illusion. It's the least substantial thing. So try and contemplate this, and also do the aphorisms. And then when we come to bedtime, again, we're going to bed, and what do we see? We see our little signs that say, all beings in the nature are the Buddha, and am I. Yay, this is good news. And then we see, as well as that, this is a dream like an illusion, a mere mirage, a fleeting fabrication. Let go, relax. Then we let go and relax. And then while we're lying in bed, right, because we want to do dream yoga, right? So we simply say, if we have a teacher, so dream yoga has this whole setup. Lie on a certain side of your body, put your body in a certain posture with your little pinky like this. I mean, I'm not going to do it because, it's not essential. Visualize certain things, say certain mantras, breathe certain ways. You know, there's many different kinds of dream yoga, but they're all quite complicated, except for this one. All the others require preliminaries, quite extended preliminaries, and an empowerment, which is permission from a teacher. This one does not require that, because it's actually trusting in your own nature. Your nature doesn't, you don't need to have an empowerment to trust in your own nature. It's just there, just trust it. So what you do is, what I do is, I mean, I have beside my bed, I have a picture of my Lama and my Lama's previous incarnation, so Dudjom Rinpoche and Dudjom Lingpa by my bed with a little offering and with a little lamp. And I just, as I'm going to sleep, I look into my Lama's eyes in the picture and I just ask, well, I go for refuge first. I go for refuge. I make offerings, so offer my body, speech and mind. And then I just ask, you know, may I recognize dreams as an illusory display? May I become aware while I'm dreaming so that I might practice Dharma in my dreams, recognize true nature of mind. You can use whatever words you want. I mean, the words I use change depending on how things are with me, how much time I have, what I'm doing in terms of practice at the time. So you can change the words, you know, but essentially it's just asking, you know, can enable me to recognize dreams. They call it apprehending dreams. So to apprehend the dream means to become lucid, to be aware that you're dreaming. So you can even just say that, may I be aware that I'm dreaming so that I can use the dream to practice, you know. So on behalf of sentient beings, of course, it's always at the core of it. So then you simply dissolve the Lama into your heart, dissolve yourself into space and rest. You know, you don't have to do that a lot. I just sort of do it once, twice, but I sleep easily. So I sort of do that once and then I kind of fall asleep. And I have pretty good experience with this. Like, I don't find it to be substantially different from the very formal, rigid form of dream yoga. And I know a lot of people have tried dream yoga and have not succeeded at it because it's difficult. It causes insomnia for a lot of people because you're not supposed to technically fall fully asleep. But this way, you're actually just letting be. You're not grasping onto anything. You're not trying to be a dream yoga practitioner. You're just going, may I apprehend my dreams as dreams? May I be aware? May I be lucid in the dream that I am dreaming? And then you can also have little reminders. So I have a tattoo. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a tattoo on my hand. That is a reminder that this is all a dream. So I walk around with that tattoo on my hand. And it's also when I'm dreaming, when I look down at my hand and I see that tattoo, I know I'm dreaming. So, oh, I'm dreaming. And so then you know you're dreaming and then you can practice in the dream. So you can call on your Lama. You can do some meditation, you know. But also an important thing is to try and change the content of the dream so that you see how illusory and fabricated it is. So you can turn the blue sky red. You can turn a bird into a monkey. You can turn yourself into another gender or no gender. You can turn water into wine if you want. You transform the content of the dream to show you this is a complete fabrication of mind. And then that helps you when you're walking around during the day to go, this is a dream too. This is fully fabricated, you know? So just asking, right? It is what we call a suggestion. If you want to be, you know, kind of secular about it, just asking, may I apprehend dreams as dreams? May I be lucid as I dream, right? It's just a suggestion, and in time, it will work. It's the nature of things. So, and then, but you do need these reminders, like I have the tattoo. I'm not suggesting you get a tattoo. You can paint one fingernail blue, right? And that just reminds you, this is a dream. And when you look at your nail in the dream, you see the blue nail and you go, oh, I'm dreaming. So you will need some kind of reminder. You can wear something around your neck, a piece of jewelry that reminds you this is a dream. And when you're dreaming and you have that on your neck, oh, I'm dreaming. And then you become lucid. You can ask for teachings in the dream. but also you can change the content of the dream to prove to yourself this is a complete construct of the mind. You know, you can fly, you can practice yoga underwater, you can visit other planets, you can befriend dragons, you know, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. You just, you know, change the content of the dream to show you this is a complete fabrication. And I have what? I am the source of it. I have the ability to change it. So that's really important, to just become aware that the mind creates all this. The mind, there's a Tibetan word which I can't currently remember that translates me, it's a Tibetan word for the mind. It kind of means a magician creating illusions. So the dualistic mind is a magician creating illusions. And we don't know at this point that there's a magician. So we take all the illusions to be true, to be real. The magician is a dualistic mind. And we need to, it's like in Wizard of Oz, you know, where Dorothy finds the wizard behind the curtain. We need to find the wizard behind the curtain. We need to see that this is an illusion. It's really very simple. All right, so we're at 3:30 and I'm finished, I think. So that's covered everything. And then of course, then we're back to the beginning. When we wake up, what do? We see our signs. All beings in the nature of the Buddha, as am I. This is a dreamlike illusion. A mere mirage, a fleeting fabrication. Let go and relax, let go and rest, you know? So that's how you can do very easily in a day, all of the Bardo practices, you know, all of them. And over time, it will really be beneficial. It will really be helpful. The only other one is Phowa, which I didn't really cover much detail because I think Phowa gets covered a lot already. That's a transference of consciousness at time of death. Because it's not kind of in every day. We don't die every single day, although technically the self does die moment to moment and is resuscitated moment to moment to moment. It's like the absolute ultimate zombie, the self, the sense of self. It perishes every single second and is then reinitiated. It has the habit of being reinitiated. Anyway, so Phowa, there's a very easy, so Phowa is a very interesting thing. Again, all these visualizations, you visualize the meridians, which we call channels in Tibetan Buddhism, Salum, Tigle are the drops or essences. And then you visualize chakras and you visualize the energy moving in certain ways. And then you do this mantra and you do this physical kind of movement. And it's all about trying to eject consciousness into the Pure Land, Dawachen. So I've done, you know, I've done a number of retreats on that. And it can be physically quite challenging. Almost everyone accomplishes it though. So it's not like, you know, it's not like a very hard thing to accomplish. And the accomplishment is a dampness at the crown chakra, a little bit of fluid leaks out if you've accomplished. And or there's a little aperture opens there and they stick a stalk of grass and it stands up in your head. Kind of fun. It's very fun. Anyway, so, but that is quite arduous, physically arduous. Well, it depends how fit you are, really, actually, how young you are too. So I think for a young, fit person, it's not arduous at all, you know, but for, you know, someone who's in their 50s or 60s, it can be quite tricky. Not just difficult physically. It's not you can't do it. You can certainly do it, but there's another way. Again, like Dream Yoga has all these visualizations and these particular postures and doing this particular kind of thing, not letting yourself fall fully asleep, you know, which takes a long time and takes thousands of hours of shamatha meditation to even work anyway. Ditto with Phowa. You need some meditative background, a little bit, not as much as with Dream Yoga, and you need to do these visualizations. You know, usually people could like do a 10-day to 14-day retreat and accomplish a sign. This is not rare at all. So, but if you don't have the means to do that, you can do this other version, which is, again, if you have a guru, call on your guru. Just rely on the enlightened nature to guide you in the Bardo. So again, every night when you're asking to see the dream, you could also ask, guide me in the Bardos. If I should perish today or tomorrow, guide me in the Bardos. And then when if you have any awareness at all that you're going to die, like if you don't get hit by a truck or something, which is completely sudden and you're just gone, you just can call out your Lama's name. not like, yeah, just in your mind. See them, say their name, call on them, and they can guide you through the Bardos. This is religious, right? You have to believe that. I do believe that. I'm not very religious, but I do believe that. So, and it's probably the weirdest, it's probably the least rational thing for me to believe, but I do believe it. So if you don't have a teacher, however, you can call on Shakyamuni Buddha. Again, Pamasan Baba, Yeshe Sogyo, Machik Ladron, Sarah Kandru, Ayu Kandro, any of these beings, you can call on them to help you. Or if you're not comfortable with that, you can make it kind of part, you can call on pure awareness, your own true nature. So you can just say to yourself regularly, when I die, I recognize my own pure awareness. Say that to yourself at night or when you're waking. So when you're waking in the morning, you can add in as part of your little routine, a single line, particularly if you wake at dawn. The Bardo meditations tend to be done at dawn and at dusk, so sunset, sundown. So particularly if you do wake up at dawn, which I do, you can say, as the sun dawns and as I awaken, likewise in the Bardo, may I recognize the mother luminosity as it dawns, because that's what we call the ultimate nature in the Bardo teachings. It's called the mother luminosity. So there's many other words for that: Buddha nature, ultimate nature, absolute nature, true nature, primordial awareness, whatever, luminous emptiness, luminous awareness, Buddha, Tathagata, Sugatagarbha, there are all these words, Rigpa, and then all these words. Anyway, doesn't matter. But you can say that as the sun dawns, As the sun is dawning now, may the true nature dawn. May I recognize the true nature as it dawns when I'm in the Bardos, when I'm dying. So you just ask, it's a suggestion. And then when you die, it's a good idea to understand what will happen so that you can recognize the luminosity as it dawns. But that's something we can't cover right now. And I've covered before anyway in the Bardo talk. All right. Okay, let's wind this up. Any questions? Hands up if you have questions. Go ahead.
Just when you're doing the visualizations of, so you've got your guru, you visualize your guru, and is that sort of like, I don't know, is that in like your third eye area? Like that's where you're visualizing it, or what are you doing?
Okay, so you visualize them in space a little above and ahead of you. So I know that some people have trouble with visualizing things. So if you have trouble visualizing things, remember I asked Namgyal Dawa Rinpoche this question on your behalf, and he gave you an answer. Yeah.
Oh.
Just have a picture.
Picture. Okay, great.
So I know that like a lot of people have difficulty to visualize. So and so you just have a picture, and that's why when I'm going to sleep at night, when I'm pooped, totally pooped, I just have the Lama's picture there.
Good. Okay.
I just look into his eyes and I just do my prayers then with him right in front of me. And when I offer at the altar, both Jamming and I have our Lama's pictures at the altar, on the altar. So I just look at his picture, so I don't have to actually visualize that sense. So but it's good to be able to see your Lama in your mind's eye.
Yes.
And the same, if you close your eyes and think yellow dress, do you see a yellow dress? No.
Yeah, it takes a while actually, but yeah, I just got one. It was a bit fuzzy, but it was there.
Yeah. So people who have trouble visualizing, use a picture, and eventually you'll be able to see that picture quite easily in your mind's eye when you think.
Right.
When you think the guru's name. So if you can choose anyone, like or like for those who don't have a living Lama, my go-to is Shakyamuni Buddha, Padma Baba, or Yeshe Sogyo. They are all fully enlightened Buddhas. You cannot go wrong trusting them. So, Yeshe Sogyo is the first woman in recorded history that we know became a fully enlightened being. But also the Buddha's mother, his aunt actually, Buddha's aunt and his wife also became enlightened. So, but they're not people we really know much about. Whereas yes, you choose her, you've got images of her, you've got things that she wrote down, you've got her life story, you can really kind of learn who she is and feel warmth and closeness towards her. But again, you don't want to do that, the Guru Yoga. There's the Chud thing, to think of beings who are suffering and then offer your body, speech and mind to them by dissolving them into light, into luminous emptiness or luminous awareness. You just dissolve, 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 and then rest in meditation. So it's either Guru Yoga or Chud. You don't have to do, yeah. Does that make sense?
Okay, and well, yes, and that dissolving side of it, they're there and then they dissolve away. And do they go into your heart?
Your heart. There's a reason for this. The heart chakra is where our awareness rests. So it's not up here.
No.
Here's the dualistic mind. Our luminous awareness rests here. And when you, as you know, when you are getting some experience with meditation, you start to get sensations in your heart. This is a completely normal thing that happens. And that's why we use that chakra, because that's where our awareness rests. So you dissolve the Lama, right, the Guru, the teacher, into your awareness. So their awareness into your awareness. The visualization of them represents their awareness, their enlightened nature. So visualizing that going into your heart, their awareness becoming your awareness. It's kind of important that you understand that that's what's happening. Their awareness and your awareness are becoming one. And then you dissolve into equanimity, into light.
Right. Okay. Yep.
But if you do the Chud, right, you're dissolving into oneness. So you're dissolving body, speech, and mind into oneness. So they both go to the same place. But one, you're not using the teacher. One, you're using compassion to dissolve into oneness. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? No? All right, cool. So I'll do a little dedication, which you can join if you want, or you can do your own. By this effort, may all beings abide in the bliss of the great perfection. Okay.